Good morning, and welcome to the first session of ALS United Greater New York's Educational and Resource Summit for today, Day 3. This morning's session is Voice Preservation and Communication Tools for Every Stage of the ALS Journey. My name is Ben Lieman, and I will be moderating this morning's session. I'm an assistive technology specialist and co-direct the ALS United Greater New York's Accessibility Services Department. Our speaker is Eddy Ehrlich. He's an occupational therapist specializing in assistive technology. At Bridging Voice, Eddy focuses on access evaluations and recommendations. I've had the pleasure of working with Eddy in many settings over our careers and always learn something new. Welcome, Eddy Ehrlich of Bridging Voice.
Thank you, Ben. I am Eddy Ehrlich. I'm an occupational therapist, and I'm with Bridging Voice. This session is called Voice Preservation and Communication, Tools for Every Stage of the ALS Journey. Who is Bridging Voice? Who we are? So Bridging Voice is a not-for-profit. It is just 6.5 years old. Our care team started out with just 2 people, and now we are 13 strong, 7 speech pathologists, 2 OTs, and 4 programmer engineers. Despite all of that mighty care team background, we are quite specialized. We focus entirely on supporting PALS, people living with ALS, and their caregivers with communication, computer and phone access, assistive technology at every stage of the ALS progression. Bridging Voice over these 6.5 years has served about 6,500 PALS. This has not been even. We started, of course, with smaller numbers, and we are just expanding. Unfortunately, there is great need. We serve clients in all 50 states. We do not reach out to other countries, but people in other countries reach out to us. We don't turn anybody away with ALS, and so we serve people in 49 countries. Our services are always free, regardless of insurance status or income, always free. All right, I want to get into the heart of the matter. What is it that Bridging Voice does? Who do we serve? It's the shorthand is people living with ALS. But breaking this down into the progression of ALS, I'd like to start here. I hope you can see my pointer. Maybe someone can confirm that you can see my pointer. First, symptoms and diagnosis. That's where the ALS journey begins.
Eddy, are you sharing your screen?
I am sharing my screen. I've been sharing my screen the entire time. Okay, so not good. Okay, so you missed my opening slides. Okay, you can see my slides now,
Yeah.
Ben?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I want to describe here. Can you see my pointer? Yes. I want to describe who are the people living with ALS and the different stages that they go through on the ALS journey. So, in clockwise direction from first symptoms and diagnosis, there's the decline in function in arms, hands, and fingers. There's the loss of reliable speech communication. There is eye gaze, usually the most reliable remaining access method. There's a period of powerful and efficient communication and access with eye gaze. And then in very late stage ALS, eye function may begin to decline and communication may become difficult. So going to the center, this is first of all a limb onset progression. It does not correspond with the bulbar onset. And bulbar onset, these two are switched. Speech communication is affected more quickly than the decline in hands and upper extremity function. Also, the focus here is on communication and access. There are, of course, many milestones in the progression of ALS. These are the progressions related to communication and access. At every stage, there is technology. There's technology, assistive technology, that can help individuals mitigate the effects of ALS. And that's what Bridging Voice is about. It's about making that technology work, implementing that technology. As Steve Gleason said, while there is no medical cure for ALS, technology can act as a cure. Bridging Voice is an expert in these technologies. And this is how we map out our services. Again, in that clockwise direction, starting at the top, we educate and evaluate. We recommend, train, implement, troubleshoot alternate access methods. We work on voice preservation, communication apps, speech generating devices, and then we have this special area called integration and customization. As an organization, for every client and in every region, we aim not to replicate existing services. If people are getting the support they need elsewhere for the technology at each stage or at one stage, we honor and encourage that to continue and stay plugged in, if you will. But I want to place these services in the progression. So those technologies that we were looking at back here, the technology is now specific. So between first symptoms and diagnosis, we encourage voice preservation. Between the decline in hands and fingers until there is a loss of reliable speech, we're not working so much on communication, we're working on alternate access. After that, we're looking at communication apps. When eye gaze is the viable method, or perhaps a little earlier than that, we look at speech generating devices that have eye gaze capability. We try to continue powerful and efficient communication and access with eye gaze, and we try to expand this period for as long as possible before, in late stage ALS, we have very few technology tools. So we really try to expand through integration and customization long-term, powerful, and efficient communication and access. We're going to dive into each one of these so that this dizzying slide doesn't stay up for too long. The first thing we're going to look at is education and evaluation. And we are always coming back to education, and we're always evaluating. We listen to you speak. We watch you type. We consider what you might need to know and what you might need to do. You have questions, and Bridging Voice has answers. What technology will help you right now, will help me right now, is a big question. And an equally big question is, what technology will be next? And when should I get that? What should I do first? And after that, how do I go through the steps in whatever technology area, whatever progression stage I'm in? There's always a list of to-dos. And so we try to organize that. Our services are personal. They're always one-to-one. They're always free of charge, and we work remotely. Although our care staff are scattered around the country, from Seattle to New York to Atlanta and thinking of New Orleans too. We are very effective with remote platforms. Today, we're being hosted by ALS United Greater New York. How does Bridging Voice and ALS United Greater New York work together? So I've highlighted what ALS United might do in the orange color and what Bridging Voice might do in the blue color. And you can see that over the course of a client's ALS journey, we will work collaboratively, and we may turn to each other multiple times for each PALS. So the referral often starts with ALS United, and we will evaluate. We'll make a recommendation. We will then turn back to ALS United and, let's say, ask for an alternate mouse or a trackball. When that arrives from ALS United Greater New York, we'll do the training and implementation. But as ALS progresses, there may be need for communication, and so on and so forth. And so there's a lot of back and forth. PALS can join this back and forth at any point. We'll pick you up where you are. So that's what our evaluation is about. When we evaluate you, you may not be at the beginning of the journey. You may be midway. You may have gotten great support until then, but now you're not. So we'll pick you up and carry you forward. We are in New York. I used to live in New York until very recently, but of course, our host today, ALS United Greater New York, is centered in New York and in the Greater New York region. That also spans into New Jersey, I'm aware. And I wanted to proudly re-emphasize and announce that there is a New York State initiative dedicated support for our New York community. This is our attempt to be proactive. We're looking for every ALS client in New York State, reaching out to them and trying to make them aware and expert in the technologies that are available to them. So it's easier than ever to get Bridging Voice services in New York State. You can self-refer. You get started here at bridgingvoice.org/New York. There's a form to fill out, and we will contact you directly. So in a way, you can, one of the ways that you could be a Bridging Voice client would be not through a referral from ALS United. So you can self-refer directly to Bridging Voice. We would still turn to ALS United Greater New York for equipment, for communication app, for a speech generating device. But this initiative encourages PALS, wherever they are in New York State, to reach out and self-refer, self-identify, and we will give you as much information, support as you're willing to receive. And what is that support beyond evaluation and education? The first step is voice preservation. Remember, this first stage after diagnosis, after the first symptoms of ALS, we encourage people to do voice preservation. Voice preservation is made up of three distinct parts: message banking, voice banking, and voice cloning. And here are some basic questions about voice preservation. Why? Why should we do this? Why should I preserve my voice? I myself was not clear why voice preservation was important when we have synthesizer voices that sound really good and they're really clear. Well, it turns out that preserving your own voice can maintain your identity and sense of self. It is difficult to look ahead at the possibility of needing an artificial voice, and that process can be overwhelming. And some people do indeed skip this voice preservation entirely, but many find the process meaningful and the outcome gratifying. Uh, and we'll get to in a moment, what is that outcome? What is the outcome of voice preservation? The next question that comes up is, when should I preserve my voice? The earlier the better, immediately, now, yesterday, is the answer that we would give. If someone comes to this again later and they're no longer able to record their intact voice, there are other options. If you can no longer record, you can also do this over time or all at once. Some people are different. Some people knock it off 1, 2, 3, and some people take their time. Sometimes it's related to respiration. Sometimes it's related to work conflicts. What is message banking? So message banking is a recording, or maybe it should be recordings of your actual voice. So what are things that would be something to put in the message bank? So these are some examples down below. Personally meaningful messages to you and your family. I like to say, if you say good night to your family, or maybe you say a grace before meals in 3 different languages, that may be something that a voice clone or a voice banked voice would have difficulty replicating. If you say something in a particular way, a good example of that is how you might talk to your pet. If you're telling your dog to get off the couch, you really need to say it exactly how it needs to be said, or the dog's going to ignore it. So messages that are more impactful with your natural voice, because it matters how you say it. These can also include sounds that a synthesizer cannot make, like non-speech sounds, like a laugh. To be able to record that, and maybe different laughs, or ew, right? Or, a particular cheer or a whistle for sports teams, that kind of thing, a reaction sounds. Those are the kinds of things that are precious messages that only you can do, or only you can do quite that specific way that a synthesizer would have difficulty replicating. What is voice banking? So we sometimes now call this traditional voice banking because for many pals, voice cloning has eclipsed voice banking entirely. But voice banking is an older technology, and it creates a synthetic computer approximation of a person's natural voice. And so I like to say that it is a synthesizer voice, a robotic voice, but it has a little bit of you in it. So it's Robbie Robot with Eddy mixed in. That would be the result. So it's not something that will be mistaken for a human speaking. This synthesizer voice is used for text-to-speech output on a communication app or on a speech generating device. When sound comes out of those apps and devices, what do they sound like? You would utilize this synthesizer instead of a stock synthesizer. And it will speak anything, any text, and do its best. The newest technology is called voice cloning. And let me just say that there are 2 primary voice banking options. One is a cappella, done for free through the Team Gleason relationship with a cappella. It requires that you record 50 sentences on their website. Or you can use the app on your mobile device. The voice that comes out of the a cappella process is compatible with most existing Windows computer communication software and on those Windows speech generating devices. The second way is built into your iPhone. If you have an iPhone or an iPad, even on a Mac, it's specific, more up-to-date hardware. So the operating system, 12 or higher is I think every phone that's still working is probably still using that. Let me get back to that if I can. Um, is probably iOS 12 or higher. It's the hardware though that may not be compatible. So not every single phone or iPad out there is going to allow you to make a personal voice. You can create 3 voices. It's free. It's built in. But last point here, it's only compatible with Apple communication software and Apple devices. So um, it's a good idea to do both because you don't know if you're going to possibly use a speech generating device on a Windows basis or um, an Apple in an iPad basis. Voice cloning. Although voice cloning is the third on the list here of voice preservation, for many pals, this is their primary voice, sometimes the only voice that they'll use. This voice cloning creates a high-quality artificial intelligence computerized version of your voice that is often indistinguishable from your natural voice. This is the kind of voice that's used in deep fakes. So this is good AI, AI used for good, and these are fabulous. Let's have a listen. Um, in a moment. So there are 2 different kinds of options. The company that Bridging Voice has made a relationship with is 11 Labs, and a leading AI voice clone creator. And it depends how much speech you have recorded. You can record new speech, you can use old speech, you can upload videos of you giving a toast at your niece's wedding. Um, you can use any speech that is of good quality. If you have less than 10 minutes, you might make an instant voice clone. Um, it's supposedly lesser quality, but I have found them to be actually quite good. Or you can create with more than 10 minutes of audio, professional voice clone, which is the best. So here's Abby, one of our Bridging Voice speech pathologists, giving us a run through of how her a cappella voice sounds and how her voice clone sounds. And do tell me, Ben, if you can hear
Hello,
me.
this video will demonstrate a comparison of my traditional voice banked voice and my 11 Labs voice clone.
So Abby's going to type now. Um, if she's typing perhaps more quickly than somebody who might be eye gazing or mousing on this screen, this
First, my traditional voice banked voice.
Hi, this is Abby. Thank you for joining us for the talk today. We are so excited that you're here.
that
And
was
now my 11 Labs clone.
Hi, this is Abby. Thank you for joining us for the talk today. We are so excited that you're here.
So those are the first the a cappella voice, and the second was so back here a cappella. This was a banked voice, and then a professional voice clone. That's what Abby was using. Okay, moving on from voice preservation, we're on to alternate access. This happens when is this? This is when hands, fingers, arms, upper extremities begin to decline. And alternate access is anything other than the standard way of computer access or smartphone or tablet access. So if you keyboard and mouse with your hands on a computer and you tap and swipe with your fingers on your phone, then alternate access is anything else. Using your foot, your voice, your head, your eyes to control your computer, your phone or tablet. It may involve using your hands or fingers in a different way, but continue still using your hands. Some of the questions that people will ask or things they'll complain about is my typing is so slow with fewer fingers. I can't press two keys together on the keyboard. Unwanted fingers get in the way and cause errors. I can't get across the keyboard or the screen. It's difficult to swipe or touch the screen. I can't isolate a finger to point or press. I can't grasp, steady, or click the mouse. I keep dropping my phone. These are some of the things you'll experience, hear about, if you're a caregiver or a family member and you're looking for how can I mitigate these problems? How can I get around these problems? That's what alternate access solutions are all about. And you can see, we group kind of standard access, alternate access solutions and specialized ones. Standard access solutions are kind of off the shelf, plug and play. They're kind of there at the ready for the most part. So I've listed 5 here. The first 3 are standard solutions, using a trackball or a trackpad instead of a mouse. Instead of your finger, using a stylus that you grip, or maybe a stylus that is strapped to your hand in order to access, give you that pointer connection point to the screen. And instead of using the physical keyboard, use an on-screen keyboard, or use some software that helps the standard keyboard be a little bit more friendly. Sticky Keys allows you to press 2 keys at once without pressing them at once. It makes them consecutive instead of pressing them at once. Some examples of more specific examples of specialized access. This 4th and 5th example, using speech. So this orange one is a screen how voice control might look on your screen. Although I see it's inverted, but these little number tags are one of the ways that you can tap anywhere on any icon on an iOS screen. On a Windows computer, going hands-free with Dragon Professional dictation software. Then there are other ways to mouse with your head. So this is a Kuha Zono head tracker with an iPad mini, being able to move the pointer around the screen. And this user is using a breath switch, just lightly blowing in order to click. An eye gaze add-on or a dedicated device. So this is a PCI 5, an add-on plug-in USB eye tracking camera that is positioned in the crease of a clamshell computer. So those are methods. And here's the good news. Yes, both standard and specialized access equipment are obtainable through the ALS United Greater New York Loan Closet. So this is one of those zigzaggy points where we would turn to the loan closet, the accessibility department of the larger care services of ALS United Greater New York, and say, hey, do you have a trackball for this PAL? Can you get it to them? Do you have a nurse call bell with a head switch? Can you get it to this PALS? That's how we work together. Moving on, now we enter the realm where communication needs dominate. That is where verbal speech has become less intelligible and unreliable. And the first thing to consider is to, as an alternative to that spoken speech, can a PALS use a communication app? What is a communication app? Communication app is a program, a text-to-speech program that runs on a phone or a tablet, sometimes on a computer, but mostly on mobile devices. So a text-to-speech program is kind of like texting, but instead of the message being sent, it is being spoken aloud. So it's very often used over the phone or face-to-face communication, where the voice is beginning to be artificially produced through this app. And yes, if you look down below, this too, obtainable through ALS United Greater New York Loan Closet at this stage as well. It's often, they will often be able to also supply the platform, like the tablet that the app runs on, not just the app. Usually these are still activated by hand. These software solutions, these apps are not covered by insurance and way lower cost than a communication device that we'll get to next. There are many, many apps, and they range in price from free to hundreds of dollars. So some of the most well-known apps are predictable. So here's a landscape and a portrait shot of a keyboard with word prediction and with phrases up above. So this is one of the more expensive, full-featured, customizable communication app running at about $160. Something that's a little less expensive, Prolo Quo for text, a mouthful in and of itself, is a little bit less expensive. It has also landscape mode, often used on an iPad, or can be turned into this portrait mode or run on a phone. And a bargain, fully customizable system as well, Speech Assistant for under $20, again with a landscape and a portrait orientation. So there are many, many apps, and you're going to work with a speech pathologist, a bridging voice speech pathologist, possibly, or if you're working with a knowledgeable speech pathologist on your own. Again, we're not trying to replicate anyone's services. They'll help you choose to navigate through this list. What would be best for you? What platform mobile device do you have? What is your ability with your fingers, with a stylus, with your head, in order to activate these communication apps? Next stage, moving right along. I think we're doing okay on time. Speech generating devices. Speech generating devices are communication apps plus. So the software may be similar to what the communication app is doing, but a speech generating device are often called eye trackers, because although there are many ways to control a speech generating device, for people with ALS, this is often done by eye tracking. Maybe not at first. There are some people who will touch the screen at first, or use a stylus, or use a mouse, but eventually the speech generating device will be accessed probably by eye tracking. These are speech generating devices. SGDs are electronic devices that speak aloud. And again, here's where that voice preservation voice, the voice clone, the banked voice comes into play. That's the voice that's going to come out of these devices. And yes, obtainable through ALS United Greater New York Loan Closet. They have, if you don't have insurance and you can't get your own device, or there is some delay where the evaluators say you're not quite ready, but you really still do need a communication device, ALS United can help bridge that gap. If they don't have a device, then there are other places to go to. There are national organizations. We often turn to Team Gleason for a speech generating device. Speech generating device, there are many. They come from many, many different companies. Here are the big seven, if you will. These are very expensive devices with a mounting, something that holds the device in place for your eye access. I think the statistic is that if you don't get training, 80% likelihood that you'll stop using it. When the people that we work with, we have a success rate in the high 90s. I think it was 97% of people who work with us are able to utilize their eye trackers successfully. There are things missing from speech generating devices, and Bridging Voice has stepped in to also not just train, not just recommend, not just implement the existing software and hardware of speech generating device to help you set up the mounting, but also add functionality. So three of our innovations, if you're in a nursing home and you want to ring for the nurse, there is no connection from the computer device, the eye tracker that you're using, to the plug on the wall that will ring the nurse's station. So the Angel Bell, not misspelled, named for Jean Angel, whose family has supported the production and dissemination of the Angel Bell, that is that link between a speech generating device and an alert system. Second, Jules' stand-up comedy is a great example of how you can really push the technology, the voice cloning technology, into functional use. So Jules he's a comedian, and he does his work now with his 11 Labs voice. He does it in English and Spanish using his 11 Labs voice. And so the way I would say it is that, integrating the 11 Labs voice and supercharging its features, capabilities in order to come out with a very powerful outcome. We've had lawyers making presentations. We've had parents doing toasts for their kids at weddings, and Jules doing stand-up comedy is another wonderful example. One of our newer innovations, adding functionality to Windows speech generating devices. Most of those platforms, most of those devices that we looked back at here, most of these are Windows computers. Well, people really miss their iPhones and iPads when they're on a Windows computer. We have found a way, Bridging Voice has found a way to mirror and control your phone, iPad from your Windows-based speech generating device. The last service area that Bridging Voice promotes and works hard at, and again, that same no fee for service, one-on-one remote training, is this area of integration and customization. And its main goal is to prolong a PAL's ability to eye track. In the words of our Bridging Voice founder and the technical director, Ben Lieman, he said, under ideal conditions, well-designed eye tracking technology will work fine, even indefinitely. But ALS rarely presents ideal conditions, and conditions can worsen with advancing ALS progression. So this is the challenge. How do we keep eye tracking going for longer and longer so that our PALs, even in advanced stages of ALS, can continue communicating, continue participating, continuing to control their computers? So here are some of the factors that negatively affect eye tracking. There are side effects of medication. The ALS progression itself will affect the eyes. There was a time when providers thought that the eyes are not affected. The eyes are affected, just very, 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 very late stage, and in gradual ways. There are eye conditions that are, that have nothing to do with ALS or may come into play with prolonged eye gaze and with age. So we need to, deal with many factors that are making it harder for someone who's eye tracking to continue to do so. So there are really two ways to improve eye tracking in the long term. One, we want to improve the physical eye tracking accuracy and avoid any software changes. So we want to make sure that we can have perfect positioning. So whereas we could have been, just to use a colloquial term, we could have been sloppier about how we angled the device or the height of the device. Now we need perfect positioning. Where eye drops might have intermittent eye drops might have helped with dry eyes. Now considering scleral lenses, as a reservoir of hydration for the eye. The second method is to introduce customizations, that is to change the software, modifications to the eye tracking software to mitigate the effects of the poor accuracy. And here is kind of the Bridging Voice special sauce. We have a growing library of Bridging Voice boards that we know about, we publicize, we train, we implement, we modify even the modifications. So some people who have worked with us may be familiar with some of these names: a Core D9 Smart Backspace board, a Backspace pop-up board, an 8-button board. So just a quick demo, and we're really wrapping up here. An 8-button board, let's have a little look at what it looks like.
This is an 8-button board for very, very challenged eye tracking users that has all of the features that are important to most users of an eye tracking device. Of course, there's communication, which includes typing and messaging, emails and texts. There's an alarm, utilities, quick talk, rest, phrases, remote for TVs and infrared devices, and apps for browsing in YouTube. That piece is well underway, but it's incomplete, but I will show it anyway. Here we have under typing, it's really simple, a two-step typing keyboard. If someone wants to say hello, they go into the bank of H through N, hit the H. But there are some things that are really special about this board. If we do HE, and you'll notice that there are predictions over here on the right side. These predictions are in buttons that are unselectable, because when someone is using such large buttons and they can't control anything smaller than that, it would be really difficult for them to reach these buttons. So they remain unselectable. If they see their prediction in that list, then they would hit the button underneath, and that would open up an 8-button board where they could select their prediction, hello. And then they also get the option of next word prediction over here. My name.
Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to move forward. Here is the Smart Backspace board, and maybe we'll jump that a little bit. There we go.
If you've ever observed an eye tracking device being used with poor calibration, you've probably seen the frustrating cycle where the user attempts to gaze at a particular character but unintentionally hits a different one. They usually will then backspace and try again. Often the same problem happens again and again. After 2 or 3 times, we all say to ourselves, why can't the device figure out that the user doesn't want that letter they keep hitting? Bridging Voice has created a custom solution with a smarter backspace button. This button will know after a pre-configured number of times that the user does not want that character and will hide it from the board. We'll type the word hello. So I'm going to type an H with my eyes, and now I need to type an E, but instead I hit the R. So normally the user would hit the backspace button and very possibly hit the R again. But with our smart backspace button, the R disappears. Now they have a second chance to get it without worrying that they're going to hit that R again. So now they can hit the E and they get their E and the R comes back. Now let's say they're trying to do the L and they hit the semicolon. They press backspace, so the semicolon is gone. But let's say this time they hit the K. So right now the computer assumes that if you accept the K, everything is fine and we should leave all of the characters visible on the screen. But if that K was unintentional and they hit the backspace, now the K and the semicolon are both gone. Now the user has a much better.
Okay, that's the end of the presentation, and I wanted to announce that there are multiple ways to engage with Bridging Voice. Become a Bridging Voice client, and you will get one-on-one, remote, and free services catered and directed to your needs. But we also have things that are available by group. One is our trainings. We have a library of all our trainings. You can get that there through our website, bridgingvoice.org/trainings-and-education/. The next upcoming training will be actually next Tuesday in the afternoon. The topic is a Start Here Guide to ALS and Communication, What to Expect and Where to Begin. All right, so again, a much more narrowed and focused and intensive presentation. Every Tuesday afternoon, Bridging Voice has open office hours. You can sign up, again, through our website or through this link or through this QR code. It's an open forum. Bring your questions about ALS, communication devices, any challenges you're having, just come to listen. Our focus again at Bridging Voice is technology for communication and alternate access, so that's what the conversations will be about. There are Bridging Voice care staff on those calls, as well as Bridging Voice ambassadors, people living with ALS who have demonstrated expertise in using their systems. Again, I mentioned that there is a New York State initiative. So you can self-refer, as I mentioned earlier, but one of our commitments is to take you step by step through the full voice preservation process. So you can get full voice preservation support for every New York State PALS. You can get free resources from us, including manual communication boards. You can start your 11 Labs cloning. You can get to our training series, the recorded ones. You can get some of our handouts, particularly about eye health and scleral lenses, all from our website. I thank you very much for your time, and now it's time for Q&A.
Eddie, thank you for a superb presentation. Lots of information, and just as a reminder, these presentations should be available after the summit if anyone wasn't able to take all of the thorough notes. I have a couple of questions for you. Would Bridging Voice assist individuals if they reside in a rehab center or nursing home? You made reference to the Angel Bell.
Yes. So regardless of where you are, we will support you. Yes, we have many, many clients who are in nursing facilities, who could be even temporarily hospitalized, and they need to set up their communication device that they may have been using at home, and now they need to set it up in a hospital. So wherever the PALS is, wherever the caregivers are, whoever the caregivers are, could be a clergy member, a chaplain, could be a maintenance worker, anybody who's interested in supporting somebody with ALS, we will train you and your extended care team, whatever the setting.
We have a viewer, I assume she's from Buffalo, who's asking how can she reach out to get support services from Bridging Voice?
So Buffalo is in New York. So There's a New York State initiative. Please go to our website, bridgingvoice.org. And there's no S in Bridging Voice. There's only a C. Not Bridging Voices, it's bridgingvoice.org. Go there and add at the end New York, /New York. And it will take you to the New York initiative site and give self-refer. You'll see these three buttons, which just outlines the form. You'll answer a few questions. You'll schedule an introductory call, and boom, you're in. If you want to go the traditional route, just go through ALS United, and they'll refer to Bridging Voice too. So they have our number. They have the inside track.
We know you. We know you.
Yeah.
The evaluation process to get a communication device is usually done by a speech language pathologist, but we have a question here saying that if somebody cannot travel to a site that does the evaluations, is there something that Bridging Voice can help with?
Well, I mean, we can help in a number of ways. So I'm just getting back to that. So again, we're talking about speech generating devices. So, there, first of all, is this an insurance funded device? You're home and you have insurance, then an insurance funded device does need to be guided by a speech pathologist who will write a report. There's a medical prescription written by your physician or neurologist. So there is a very stock way of going forward. In order to get that done, we need to find an evaluator who will do remote evaluations. And the vendors who will bring the devices will come to your home, and the evaluator will work remotely. Our speech pathologists know who will do that. And because it's remote, there's a certain amount of flexibility. You don't have to find somebody in your local city. So, but you do have to find a state licensed speech pathologist. The other, if you're not getting an insurance funded device, then the process is a little bit easier. That one of the Bridging Voice speech pathologists can make the recommendation to, guess who? ALS United, and say, hey, Ben, do you have a TD pilot in your loan closet that you might be able to send out to? We've evaluated them, or we want to use that for an evaluation to see if PALS XYZ can use it. So, or we'll ask Team Gleason to send a device. So there are lots of devices available. The evaluation that you're probably referring to is that insurance-funded one, and then we have to find the resource. What evaluation center in your state will do a remote evaluation and recommendation?
Thanks, Eddy. So I assume that the answer to this question is similar to the answer you gave for the person in Buffalo. But if somebody's coming from New Jersey, how would they reach out to Bridging Voice?
Well, New Jersey, interestingly, was our first state initiative. So although it's been, I believe, 3 years now since that initiative began, and a year since it has lapsed, in other words, we went all gangbusters to find every ALS client in New Jersey, but apparently there are still more and more coming, unfortunately. I would refer the easiest way, again, you won't be able to use the New York State Initiative form, but you can use the ALS United Greater New York link, right? And just go that traditional route. We work through, in general, referral partners. And our biggest New York referral partner is ALS United Greater New York. So in order to what is it called, to throttle the fire hose of support, we ask that people come through referral partners. And when we do a state initiative, we say, scrap that. Anybody, come one, come all. And we kind of take the risk that we won't get too overwhelmed too quickly. But so you can always do that. You're in New Jersey, that's ALS United, or if you're not connected with ALS United, there are other ALS organizations who are referral partners in New Jersey too. So and you can work through them. If you send an email to info@bridgingvoice.org with your information, we will not turn you away. info@bridgingvoice.org.
Okay, we'll keep that quiet.
Yes.
Eddy, thank you for a wonderful presentation, very informative. As I mentioned earlier, I always learn something. I have a page full of notes of things that I picked up on. Let's just see. And to our guests, thank you for your participation and questions. Don't go far. Our next session, Physical Therapy Perspective, the Continuum of Care from Clinic, Outpatient, and Home-Based Therapy, is next at 10:45 a.m. Have a great day. Thank you, everyone.